body's not made to read a cat virus, right? So you can't get sick from a cat virus because it won't even read in your body. It won't dock. There's nothing for it to dock to. But can you get herpes? Yeah. I can take a herpes virus, drain herpes, right?
And then just put the
shell. Correct. So now now it's going to break down because the virus can't naturally have any immune to it because it's never had it before. But what did they figure out over time? And this isn't talked about as well. What did they start figuring out? See, all 1,234 European men died. But what happened to those men that they infect in Africa? What happened to the 200 out of the 1,000 that didn't die? Say it again, Z. So it took about close to 10 years, but they were able to develop what? Naturally. Naturally. Now, this is what they won't tell you about your body and your genetics. Has nothing to do with any of their science. They're still struggling. This is why the UN meets every other year to talk about melanin. Okay, because they have no explanation for it. Every certain amount of year, melanated people were developing antibodies. So it can't be just a regular poison. It has to be a continuous poison.
The human being will get sick. The symptoms will be both symptoms of sheep viscera virus and symptoms of bovine leukemia virus. All right? Now, we talked about the receptors, and I want to go into this melanin piece really quick with y'all, real briefly. And a lot of this, I'm kind of going fast. I can give you a more detailed presentation, but I just want the common folks to kind of get an understanding of how this thing works. And we can go into, contact us on the website, and we'll give you more information on exactly how this works. When we make this in the lab, these are the exact steps we go through. I'm just throwing out all the scientific nomenclature because a lot of times when you throw that in, it gets people confused. So I'm keeping this as simple as possible for the common person to get it. Now, we talked about human cells. This is a cell. Has a nucleus in it, ribosomes, and all that stuff. This is a human cell, okay? Okay. On the surface of human cells are these things called receptor sites. And they're these long little things, and they go just like this all around the cell. I hope you can see that. These receptor sites have very unique properties. They determine what gets into a cell and what gets out of a cell. So receptor sites are like lock and key mechanisms. In science, we call them docking proteins. The receptor site may be built like this, and then the protein that docks to it has to fit in. So it's a glove fit mechanism that the protein or the virus has to have a specific shape to lock on to that receptor. And that's what these receptors are. Okay? So in order to get into a cell, you have to get into the docking protein or the docking receptor site in order to get into the cell. Anything, whether it's nutrients, whether it's a signal, all the things that the body uses to send a signal into the cell has to go through the docking proteins or the docking receptor sites, as we call them. So the receptor sites play a role in getting in and out of the cell. So a virus, if we have a virus here, like we just put in, which is now the bovine, right? Viscera virus. We got this bovine viscera virus floating around here, and on the bovine viscera virus, it's trying to attach on to this receptor. And now, remember, the receptor wouldn't have recognized this if it was just bovine viscera virus shell. It recognizes it because now it's a herpes shell around here. And that's how it's able to get into the cell. Now, the virus isn't this big. I'm just drawing it big enough for y'all to see it. The virus is much smaller than a human cell. But I just want you to see that. So the docking protein will lock on to the herpes coat, which cloaks the Trojan bovine viscera virus in it, and that's how to get into the cell. Now, what does this have to do with HIV/AIDS and melanin and black people? Well, just so happens that the receptor sites that are in people of color, the melanin facilitates the types of receptors that are on the cell in the human being. So in black folks or African people, we have a certain type of receptor. And this receptor on the allele, when we look at the chromosomes, is called delta 32 positive, or CCR5 delta 32 positive. That's what this receptor is called. Let me break it down a little further for you. CCR5 delta 32 positive. This is an allele that codes for this receptor site. Okay? These receptor sites for CCR5 delta 32 are more abundant in people of color than any other race. So much so that people who are Caucasian who do not have this CCR5 delta 32 allele in their DNA are more resistant to catching HIV infection. In other words, if a white person who has CCR5 delta 32 negative, which is a mutation of this one, remember we have mutations that occur in our DNA, delta 32 negative, let me put it under here, a delta 32 negative allele, if they have two homozygous traits for that, they will not be able to catch HIV even if you give it to them. But in people of color, this CCR delta 32 receptor sites are more abundant. Well, what does this mean? Well, what this means to you all is HIV/AIDS really has a strong affinity to this CCR5 delta 32 allele, which brings into question, is the virus racist? And viruses cannot be racist unless they're designed to be that. So how does AIDS know that this is the virus it's supposed to attach, this is the receptor that it is supposed to attach to in order to get into the cell? How does HIV know that? Well, it either was designed to know that or manipulated somewhere in the lab to know that it must bind to this receptor site. If it does not bind to that receptor site, it's much more difficult to get into the cell. In some cases, cannot get into the cell unless it binds to this delta 32 positive allele.
So it can't be just a regular poison. It has to be a continuous poison. This is why they descendant from the AIDS, and they're pushing more birth control. They're pushing more vaccinations, everything, keeping more and more poisons in you. This is what we're understanding, and we owe this information. We owe the credit for these documents that I have to people like Dr. Horwitz, Dr. Graves, who gave their life and risked their life to get this information out there. We can go above and beyond. We can show where the U.S. government spent $550 million of taxpayer money to develop the HIV enzyme. We have the budget for the official program. We can show the transcripts. We have the documentation. We have the numbers. We have the virus batch number. We have all of this documentation to prove that HIV or AIDS is not a virus. AIDS is a what? Agenda. It's an agenda. They figured out that 80% of the people of the population were melanated people, and they needed to do something about that population. The whole race thing that they play is just an illusion. There's only one race on this planet, and that's the human race. Okay, this is Warrior Training on AIDS. We're going to get you guys caught up. We hope you guys enjoyed the information. We inspire everybody to go out and do their own research. Please do not take our words for anything. Do we want people to believe us? No, we don't require belief. We want you to do your own what? Research. See the Warriors taking notes. They do their own research. Thank you guys for tuning in. RBG. All right.
Yeah, I'm about to go in. Yeah. Let's get it. This is the manuscript. My lyrics are catastrophic. Punchlines and metaphors leave you stiff like catatonics. Your thoughts are microscopic. Your reality's a dream. My words offer freedom, so respect the Elohim.